French fighter bombers heading off to carry out more raids today. France promised to continue intensifying airstrikes on IS. This was a demonstration it was making good on that promise. Vladimir Putin, already carrying out airstrikes against IS, was in Tehran today, meeting another sworn enemy of the group, Iran. One more example of the extraordinary diplomatic momentum assembling the most unlikely of international coalitions. General Stan McChrystal knows about assembling coalitions against militants. He was the commander of US forces in Afghanistan and has written of his years of experience fighting Al-Qaeda. He says the painful truth is that airstrikes are not an end game in themselves. What's needed is a wider, deeper and longer-term strategy.
If the objective that you define is destroying ISIS, then you say, well, that's different from making a decision to do airstrikes. That's not an end state. Airstrikes are an action, and if they're not effective, they're a gesture only.
As Islamic State's de facto capital, the city of Raqqa has become both a strategic and symbolic target and a focus for intensified airstrikes. But IS, which has controlled Raqqa since last January, is now making it hard for the 200,000 civilians there from evacuating to safety. Many have fled, but those who remain are subject to brutally strict rules and extreme violence if they disobey or inform on the group. Syrian monitoring groups reported more than 70 airstrikes in the days after the Paris attacks, hitting the group's main headquarters, weapons caches and a training camp. But can airstrikes be effective in targeting IS but not civilians when the group has weaved itself into the very fabric of society? Nadim Khouri, a human rights investigator, visited Raqqa just before IS took over.
For example, strikes on the fuel tankers that we saw are on the one hand, reducing revenue streams for ISIS, and this is positive, but at the same time, they are actually hitting the fuel that is being refined locally to power generators, to power hospitals, and to power transports.
David Cameron is set on joining the fight against IS in Syria. As always, intervening militarily is the easy bit, but maintaining military operations, even if it affects the civilians you're trying to help, is the difficult part no politician wants to face, but often has to. Raghi Omar, News at 10.